All right, so um, for today's little optional review that we're doing, I'm using Greg's Toy Tail um, code. So this is his index.js. And what we're going to talk about today is fetch, asynchronicity, how promises kind of work. And then we're going to refactor some of these functions to use async and await syntax. After we've done that, I also, if we have time, which we should, I want to show you guys how to perhaps refactor the object that we're going to use to make all these fetch requests. So instead of calling like the fetch in here, we're just going to create an instance of our adapter and then pass in whatever endpoint we want. So that's going to happen towards the end. So
I just want to say, like, the async refactoring that was done in here, like, that a friend of mine did that, like, we were talking through it, but
I don't, oh, okay. Right, where is it? No. Const methods, fetch. Yeah, so I don't see any, okay, return new promise. So over here, what he's doing is actually returning a promise. This isn't, which is essentially what fetch does. It returns a promise. All that async and await is kind of syntactic sugar to do away with the dot then and to not have to use kind of like the curly boys and all that inside of our functions. Essentially, it works exactly the same way as a regular fetch, and a promise is still being resolved. So for this, we could actually just get rid of all of this here. So he was trying to show you how to like resolve a promise essentially here by creating a new promise instance and then returning that. So we're not gonna mess with this one too much. I'm gonna just refactor this load toys function here to use async await. Okay, and then after that, we're just gonna get rid of all of your fetches, and we're gonna put them all in a, or we're gonna simplify them by putting them in their own API adapter class, essentially. Cool. So again, what the point that I made earlier is it's a fact. A promise is still going to happen with async and await. Essentially, we're still doing all this kind of stuff here on the like JavaScript is just taking care of it for us and kind of abstracting away some of the complexities of the promise. So let's just walk through this code. I'm sorry to keep doing that. I'm still kind of choking from that egg I ate. Yeah.
Would you mind blowing up your VS code to make it bigger? We got a request in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, if you see anything in the chat, please let me know because I have it off to the other screen and I'm not really paying attention to it too much. So just hop in and make a point of it. Thank you. Okay. So how does a fetch work exactly? If we fetch to anything like here, what we're getting back essentially is a promise. And a promise is just a JavaScript object, okay? Now fetches, like set interval, or like saving something to a database, these are all asynchronous things that take place. Set timeout is asynchronous. So if I do this fetch here, you see that we have a promise and it says pending. That means it hasn't been resolved. But if we click on it, failed to fetch. Did I stop the server? I did. Oops. Let's start this guy back up. So now if I fetch again, promise pending, and then eventually it will say resolved. Okay? So that's all the fetch does. Fetch is a newer form of getting stuff from a server. In the old school days, before I think like 2017, we have to use something called XHML HTTP request. XHML. Let me just Google it. Okay, and if you guys go here, it shows you how to build one of those XHML HTTP requests. And it's pretty involved. And essentially what Fetch does is it kind of abstracts some of this guy away for us too. So what we're doing is we're working towards a, we're building towards more and more abstract layers of abstraction to kind of build this complicated request to a server on the back end. So all that async and await does is it abstracts some of that code for us. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to refactor this function here to use async and await, and then to not have to rely on the .thens anymore. So if we have a function that is asynchronous in nature, again, anything like a fetch request or a saving something to a database or a set interval or a set timeout where we're waiting on something to happen, that is a asynchronous function. So to refactor this function to an asynchronous function, we have to put async in front of it. Okay? Then whenever we're getting a promise returned to us, in this case, we're getting a promise returned to us here, and we're getting a promise returned to us here. Okay? These are two promises. We're going to have to put in the keyword await. Okay? So now all await does, it's just letting JavaScript know, hey, remove all this extra crap that we have here, this .then, blah, blah, blah. We know that we're going to get back a response. So what we want to do is we want to use this response and set that equal to the return value of this guy. Okay, once we've done that, we can actually now just refactor this to just have response.json. Okay, so it looks, our code now looks like it's the way that we expect it to look if it was just regular synchronous code, right? So we just declared a variable. We had to add this extra little bit of await business here. But essentially, after that, we just use the response like we normally would. So we know that this is sending us a response, and we are assigning that response to a variable that we're then using in the next line. This .then here also returns a promise. So again, what we can do is we can say await, okay, and then we can get rid of the entire .then block. And remove this part right, well, hold on, what do we have here? Just this guy. And we're going to have let's see. Sorry about that. Give me a second, guys. I forgot how to do this little bit of code. So we do let result equal await.then result. Okay, cool. So now we want to get the response from this guy. So essentially what we want to do is we want to grab this little bit of code right here and just drop it right here, right? Because that was our other that was our other promise. And I'm sorry, I just lost track of what was where, because when you're refactoring, it seems a little confusing. But essentially now we're waiting for this response.json because this is also a promise. And then we're assigning that value to result. And now we have result.forEach. We're using it like we would use a regular variable. So result.forEach element, make toy card, blah, blah, blah. So if all is well in the world and I didn't jack anything up, if we come back to the toy tail challenge here and we reload the page, everything works exactly the same. Any questions so far about what we did here? I'm sorry for getting a little tripped up when I was coding this out, but it happens. If you guys have any questions about that, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to use a wait anytime that we're dealing with a promise. And in this function, we have two promises, right?
Correct.
So the first one I get when you're doing a fetch, you're dealing with a promise because you have to wait for, to hear back from the database, and we don't know how long that's going to take, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second promise is the act of changing the information that we got from the database into JSON. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So
yeah, why is that a promise?
That's just the way that fetches work. The first thing that gets returned to you is a promise, and if you return a promise will always return a new promise. So as long as we're returning something from a promise, we're gonna have another promise returned to us. So that's just a little my English is not too good right now. A little idiosyncrasy of promises. So essentially, if we were to do this, it doesn't like that. That's a promise, and if we were to chain it then, this also returns a promise. And it doesn't have to be .json, it could be .text, it could be, there's other formats that exist out there. In our case, we're saying .json. So this returns a promise. If I then chain on another .then, and say JSON whatever, or just let's do how we normally know how to do this. And let's say we want to return this again. Just return the JSON. And let's say I wanted to chain on another then. I continue doing this because we're always going to get a promise back. There might not be anything in that promise, but that's just the way that promises work. They always return another promise if you send something back towards it. So if I do this again, hopefully this doesn't break my code. I'm not. See, so I've chained down a third one, and if I do this again for a fifth time, or we call something else, right? Poop. We're returning whatever this is. And it's still a promise. And it's an array. And that's what got returned to us. So that's just the way the promises work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions?
I have a question. So basically, away is same as doing .then, right?
Essentially, yeah. So anything that returns a promise to you, you can drop a await in front of it. That's essentially the big stink of it, right? So let's see, if I do a set timeout, let's just return, I don't know, 2 or something, right?
Hey, Yohan.
Yeah.
There's a question. Why use await instead of .then?
It's just a different way of writing the same thing. So I would say stick to the .then. This is newer syntax. If the .then is what works for you, do it. That's why I said this is more of an advanced topic.
Yeah.
It really is just syntactic sugar to make your code look like it's synchronous code. That's all it is, and it's just being used more frequently out in the field for newer projects than .then or than XML HTTP requests.
Nice, thanks.
So I mean, I guess the other thing is with this, you can also put in like a spinner sort of, so you can tell the user that I'm working on it. I guess you could probably do that with .then too.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, whenever you're doing something and you want to, as a matter of fact, I would feel like it's probably easier to do that with a .then than with await and with async await, just because it's, to me, to conceptualize, okay, in the .then, I can call another, I can call another function, or I could have something happen before that promise gets resolved inside of the .then, and then once that promise gets resolved, I can call to like maybe have a Boolean value, some sort of flag that turns our spinner from true to false or something like that, and then I could add that to the .then. So it depends. I haven't created a spinner using await and async, but I have with .thens, and all I do is to do that I have like some sort of global variable like let spinner equals true, and then once the promise resolves inside of the .then, I put spinner equals false, and that's how I would append the spinner to the page and remove it when it's not needed after the call is made. Does that make sense? Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So
can we do that and just say like make a spinner that just says like working?
well, maybe not make a spinner, but I could probably just put working here somewhere on the top of the DOM. Yeah. Let's see. Let add to equals false. How would we want to do that here? So we could either do it in the DOM content loaded while we're waiting, or while we're waiting to load toys. Which element do you want to have the waiting appear and disappear in?
I mean, frankly, I don't care. I mean,
Okay.
put it in the document body for all I care.
All right. And then load toys. This is the actual, like, this is what shows us all these guys, right?
Yes.
I think so, yeah. So, here we can do document dot, actually, do you have add button, toy form? Okay, document dot, query selector, body. Body dot prepend, and then I'm gonna make a p tag here. That p equals document dot create element. P. All right, so this should populate now whenever the load toys function is called. So that means as soon as I reload this page, we should see loading, and it won't go away because we haven't done anything to remove the loading spinner there, right? So where is that guy? Elements. In the body, I put prepend. It's not in there. Oh. No, that's fine. What happens if we do this here? I didn't put let. There it is. Okay. So what happened here? That. Okay, there it is. So we have this thing that says loading. All right, now we need a way to get it off of the page, right? So we might not even need to have a flag in this case. We could just have this showing here. And then once this thing resolves, but again, I haven't done it with Async Away, so I'm a little rusty on how I would do that. I'd have to like do a little research. So I'm gonna change this back to a regular fetch. And this to a dot then. And this to another dot then. And then I need to close this guy out. No, it's this guy first, and this guy, right? No.
Opposite.
I got it backwards. Oh, what I do here? This guy closes with.
Line 33 should be the opposite still.
Okay, and what else am I missing? No, this is just a.
I think you have an extra one.
Yeah, and then I need to close this function here. All right, cool. All right. So now what we're gonna do is inside of this promise is being resolved. Once we are inside of this dot then, that means that we got the information back from the promise, and that means that we can remove the p tag. So we can just do p dot remove, and hopefully, if all is well in the world, we should see loading, and then we should see it come off as soon as all these guys load up. And let's bring out this guy, just in case anything breaks. Now let's refresh the page. That got it a little too quickly for my taste. There it is, loading, and then you see it goes away. So this is taking a while. I think it's just because my computer is slow right now. I hear my fan just going crazy. But this is essentially doing what we want it to do. So this loading is disappearing as soon as the promise is resolved. So again, we fetch. Right there, it happened real fast. Let's try it incognito. so that it's not cached. And we're going to get this URL. Okay, so I want you guys to fix your eyes right here in this section of the screen, and you should see the loading pop up and then disappear shortly thereafter. Too fast. All right, so take my word for it. That's essentially what's happening. It's loading pretty quickly because the server is on our end. So we could probably do something else where we could hit another endpoint and not show the not call this.
If you want to try something quick, you could make with the dev tools. I think you could make your non-responsive mobile version.
Yep.
That might do it for you.
Awesome. Good call. And that's in.
I think you have to do the mobile version, and then I think there's a thing there for like instead of online, like
low end mobile. There we go.
And this maybe will get it.
All right, so yeah, let's check it out here now. And again, we should see the loading. It's gonna look real small. Let me try to blow my.
You can make it instead of 100%, like 300% or something.
Let's put it as an iPad Pro. All right, so you guys should see right here the little loading pop up, and that doesn't really blow it up, does it? All right, cool. Anyway, let's give it a try and see what happens. Let's let my screen catch up. My computer's super laggy right now with Zoom and all this other stuff we got going on. So we're loading, see, it's just loading, and then it goes away. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, got it.
All right, so that's essentially how you would make a spinner. You make something happen before you call your asynchronous function, and then you remove it once that asynchronous function resolves. And that's really all there is to it. There's other situations where, like, if you have some sort of state object or something, which we'll get to in React, where you could have a situation where until something changes, then we're going to show a spinner. Otherwise, we're not. And that's just something that you keep in your global state, essentially. So, yeah. Anyway, that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go in too much with this here. However, what I want to do is show you guys how to refactor some of your requests into a more object-oriented kind of approach using an API adapter, essentially. So let's go back to const result equals response.json, and then const response equals await. One thing to keep in mind, guys, too, is this await does not, like, we're not literally waiting here for this to resolve. If we have other code beneath it that is that's just going to execute faster than this, it's still going to run the way regular JavaScript executes. So there's no real difference between using await and .then, except for, maybe understanding when we can use when the promise is resolved, so that we can change elements like we did on the body with the .then. So cool. Let's get this guy. And now we need to get rid of this guy. All right, so the way that we've been writing all our fetches for the past 2 weeks, essentially, was to write them all in our main JavaScript code as its own thing, as its own function or method. what I want to do now is I want to create a new file, and I'm going to call that file, I don't know, API adapter.js. Okay, and in here, if you guys haven't done the object-oriented stuff, and you guys want to leave to go read that stuff, feel free. I'm recording this. I'll post it back up. But for now, what we're going to talk about is how to create an API adapter object that essentially we're going to use here in place of all this stuff that we did. Or at least this stuff here that we did. Okay, and everywhere else that we are creating fetches, like here. Cool. So essentially what we're doing with this toy tail one is we're adding new toys, and we're getting all toys, and there was something else that we did over here, and then we are patching a toy. Okay, so we are creating, and we are updating, right? So I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call it API adapter.
Yeah, I think the patch is just it's just changing the number of likes.
Okay, cool. It's an actual patch request though, right?
I think so.
Alright. That's not a problem. And the nice thing about this is that you can build this once and then use it anywhere else that you're making fetch requests. So that you don't have to write all your fetches every time that you build something new. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a constructor. And this constructor is going to take a base URL. Okay, and then we're going to say this dot base URL equals base URL. All right, that's going to be where we're going to be doing our fetches to. All right, the first one that we want to do is we want to get all the toys, right? So to abstract this and not make it just for this lab, I'm going to call this method. Remember, it's called a method when it's in a class, and it's a function when it's outside of a class. So I'm going to call this method get all or fetch all. What do we prefer? Get all, I like. And all we're going to do here is we're going to jack this. And then we're going to dump that right in there. And then we're going to return result. And this function is async. And now here, to be able to use that class, we have to create a new instance of it. So we're going to say let adapter equal new API adapter, and this takes a base URL, and the base URL is localhost 3000 toys something toys, I think. Where is it? I put it over here. So we're gonna pass this guy in minus the toys. Okay. So we created a new constant called adapter. Okay, so we have an instance of this adapter that is going to that we're going to use down here in load toys. So here we're going to say adapter.getAll, and then we're going to have to pass in the endpoint. And the endpoint we're going to interpolate into our base URL. And we're going to do, actually, I don't need the forward slash. I just need endpoint. Okay, and I don't need the forward slash because I put it in the way that I initialize it right here. Localhost 3000 with the forward slash. Okay, so now we created a function that's going to return a promise. Okay, so again, we can do the same business over here that we did earlier. This function, we're expecting to, first we're going to use the adapter. And then we're going to say get all, and then we're going to pass in toys because that's the endpoint we were getting, right? But this returns a promise. So we're going to have to use let result equals await. And this is going to be async here. And crossing my little fingers for me to not blow this up. Let's see if this is still working. Let me go back to regular size and refresh. API adapter. Oh shoot, it's not defined. So I didn't. I did not bring the API adapter in here. So cool. And everything still works the same way. So now we've abstracted the fetch request out of the load toys function, and we just called our adapter to get us all the toys. Okay, then we can do the same thing for adding a new toy. Okay, so this one, we've got some headers and we've got all this stuff here. And then you are console logging, const new form, add event listener submit. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this stuff, and then our API adapter, we could also have some headers for the fetch, right? Let's drop this guy in here, and we're gonna have another function called post. And then a post takes a couple of things, right? We got to take the body, which is going to be an object, the endpoint, and that's essentially it. That's all we need to create a post request. So on this guy, what we're going to do is we're going to create another fetch. And it's going to be the same as this guy here. And then we're going to say dot then. Oh, and we need the little config object here. So this is something that we can put in we're going to call this a post header. this stuff. This is going to be the body that we need. Let's throw this guy in the So we created a post header, and this is the header that we're going to need every time that we create a post. So now in our in this guy, we have the post header, and then we also need the body, right? So and the body we're going to send in from the place that we call it where we need it in our actual application. Okay, so now we have this post, and we are going to return a response promise. And that should be it. Then you're just console logging over here what it is. We can do that on the other side of the thing we're doing. So let's get rid of this. Why is this broke? This guy, okay, I'm missing another. Cool. And then this guy closes here, this guy closes here, I got an extra one. All right, dope. So if we come back over here, the body is this guy right here, right? You're doing json.stringify. Actually, I forgot that here. So for the body, we want to do json.stringify. And that was a little s. So now, all we need now is this body here, and we can actually get rid of all this. And this guy closes here. This is our fetch. Is fine. New form add event listener. This guy closes here. What is still open? This guy is missing a. Cool. So now we're going to say body equals, and instead of json.stringify, because we're doing that on the other end, we're just passing this guy. We're going to pass this guy in. Okay, and so now we're going to call our adapter again. Adapter.post. Okay, and then we're going to pass in the endpoint. Right? Is that how do I have the arguments? I've got body and endpoint. I should probably do endpoint first and then body. It just kind of makes more sense. So the endpoint is toys, and then the body is the body that we have defined right here. Okay, and that should still work the same. And now we've abstracted all of the fetch information into a I'm sorry, all the post information into a post method in our API adapter class. Okay, so hopefully if all is well in the world and I refresh this page, I haven't jacked anything up and everything should still work the same way. Likes 13, likes 14. Cool. How do we feel so far? Any questions?
All good. Makes sense to me.
Okay.
This is great.
Awesome. So, again, if we want to go back and refactor this to use our newer syntax, what we have to do, if it's an asynchronous function, just type in async in front of this guy. What we are waiting to get back is a response. So we're going to say let response equal await this guy. And now we can remove the .then. And just return the response.json. And in this case, we do want to return it. Okay, and now if we want to use it on our, if we want to use it over here, and we still want to use async, we could mix async await with regular .thens too. That's another thing. So, you know, you guys have the freedom to do that if you want to. So I'm going to do a .then first, and then I'm going to refactor again to use an async await just so that we see both formats. But all this takes here now is for us to do .then result from the fetch, right? And we're going to console.log. The result. And I feel like we were console. Where's this console log coming from? 102 and 108. 102, 108 right here. So we're not going to console log this, just so we can see our actual console log when we hit the like button. And we don't get confused with extra stuff. So we're going to come back over here, refresh the page one more time. We're going to hit like. And we did not get our console log. All right, so what happened here? Adapter.post body. Then result. Console log result. Howdy ho. Save. Oh, no, that's fine. Interesting.
Isn't this the add new toy function?
Oh yeah, shoot. That's not the like function. All right, so we just refactored the add new toy. Well, let's hope that works. So how do we add a new toy? We click on it, enter a toy's name, Bebop, I don't know, image URL, sure, whatever. So this is a toy. Is that John Coltrane? Classic. Copy image address. So we had an error, uncaught something in promise. Do we not have a, yeah, event.prevent default. I want to see what what the issue was. Why are we refreshing the entire page? Submit, add new toy. Create new toy button. Input submit. Create new toy. E.prevent default. If anybody sees what's up, please let me know too, so I'm not just live coding here. JSON is not defined at API.post. Okay, so we got an issue over here.
Got a capitalized JSON on line 21.
No. Oh yeah. You're right. I'm sorry. Cool. Yep. So let's refresh. Add new toy. Uncaught and promise JSON dot stringify is not a function.
Stringify is misspelled.
Stringify. Jesus. We'll get there. There we go. Howdy ho. And where's John Coltrane? Nowhere to be found. So what happened? We did a post of toys. We got a 201. I don't know what the one's all about. If we come back to index.json. Let's console log the result this time. File users, blah, blah, blah. Toy tail, undefined. What is this telling me? Index.js 35. Index.js 23. I don't know what in the world.
Did it make it to the database, or it didn't even get to the database?
Your file is not found. What happened to this guy? That's a good question. Let's find out. Nope. We got something with an ID of 10, but nothing in there. So something looks like it went through, but for some reason it's not. This thing's not opening up now, though. Option B.
Yeah, Settlers of Catan is still in there.
Failed to load resource undefined.
I put in Catan as my test case section.
Yeah, still saved. Failed to load resource undefined 1. Why is that happening? We API adapter.
So it stands to reason that the body was undefined, right?
I'm not sure what it's saying that it's undefined here. It says failed to load resource, error, file not found. So a file not being found sounds...
Can you just delete the dbjson id 19 and see if that fixes it?
dbjson id 19?
Yeah, just delete that object.
This guy?
Yeah. See if that helps you out.
Yeah. So we were trying to find the... it was trying to put something with an image, right? Essentially. That didn't exist.
Yeah, that's my best guess, is that I was looking for an image that didn't exist.
Alright, cool. And when we go to add a new toy, we've got a toy image URL that we want to throw in there. And let's make sure that this is an actual image that we can get to. But essentially, this is all built out. I'm not going to do the patch or the delete just because it's like 12:10 almost. But this should work. But yeah, that's essentially the same pattern that you're going to continue to follow. Essentially, you're going to build a get, you're going to build a post, you're going to build a patch, and you're going to build a delete or a destroy. And then that way, all you have to do is just call these guys on your wherever you want to use it. And then this is totally reusable. It's not just for one application. Now you can use, and now you can use this adapter class for every application because the pattern is essentially the same. So all we would do is we're going to create a, instead of a post header, we would then create a patch header, and then we would create a delete header. And we could probably even abstract this part here. It's just the method that we have to pass in, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we can continue to abstract this out and make it a little more usable across different applications. But now let's just make sure that we can actually create a toy. We're console logging the results, adapter.post toys, the body, and the body is this guy with a name, image.value, and a like. Let body. All right, let's try this one more time. Andrew ++. We've just got an ID of 10. So something's happening with our posts where we are not sending in the body. So JSON.stringify body. So what I want to do here when we create another post is I want to console log it. Just, troubleshooting. We're not going to worry about this error. Andrew figured out what it was.
And I think you need to make it an object with a key of body and a value of JSON.stringify. No?
I think you are right. Yeah. Yep. So, it's my bad. This guy, what is an object? Let body.
Yeah, but back in where you define the post. So you have post headers.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're.
Oh, yes.
Body,
I gotcha.
And then the data is JSON.stringify.
Yeah. Good call. Thank you for that. We're adding all these crazy toys. We're gonna add Greg in here. And Greg, you're gonna be Coltrane today. And we still are not getting what we want.
I think body is a key in the post headers object.
True.
So you might have to like spread operator or
Yeah.
something. But
So
Be
body
like-
is a key in this guy, right? Like this?
I think so. Yeah, comma body.
Okay, so how do we make this bad boy happen? Sorry guys, as you can tell, I didn't really super prepare for this lecture. This was kind of out of the blue, and this is what happens. We develop bugs in the process. Is this right?
Yeah, I think that looks right to me.
Okay. Who else do we have in the room? Anybody still here? Kamal? Oh,
Yeah, I'm still there.
Koman. Ooh, I like that. Komal. There we go. There it is. All right, cool. So, because the body is a key in the header, we had to add it to the header, and that was the source of our bug. So big plus plus to Andrew for catching that. But that's essentially it. This is how we would kind of just refactor our code to use something that's a little more useful across different applications. And again, we could go further here with this guy, and we could make this a asynchronous function too. I mean, it is an async, but all we have to do is just add async and let result equals await this guy, and then we can just console log result without using a dot then. Any questions before we wrap this up?
No, can you just push this back up?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in a separate branch. I'll call it API adapter branch or something.
Good.
Cool. And guys, this is gonna be on Greg's GitHub. So if you guys want to take a look at it, I'll post a link to it in Slack, and just make sure that you guys switch to that branch, the API. Actually, I'll post a link with the branch and everything in it. All right, that's all, folks. That's all she wrote. If there's no questions, I will see you guys this afternoon for the next review, which is happening fairly soon, and to talk about the project for next week. Cool.
Thank you.
Rock and
Thanks,
roll.
everyone.
Have a good one.
You too, guys.